All right, everybody. Hello and welcome, whether you're streaming this live on Facebook or on Albert's list here in our Zoom room here. We will have a recording go out on this later, and we'll definitely have that. So we want to welcome you on this Tuesday afternoon, April 5th. For a different kind of webinar that we haven't done quite yet, but we always want to open your eyes and really introduce you all the possibilities. And so we're here to welcome you to how to break into real estate in 2022. I'm sure all of you have been watching the real estate market lately, all-time high prices here in the San Francisco Bay Area and honestly beyond. And it's pretty crazy out there, which means that for all the people who are buying houses, there are also the real estate agents, loan officers, and everyone in the value chain along the way who are benefiting from this really hot market. And so today we're here, and I'm very honored to bring in my friend Spencer Hsu. He's a realtor with eXp Realty. He's one of the top agents in the entire United States, and he knows the market, both California and beyond, inside and out, and is here to really share with you how you can take advantage of this opportunity, whether you're looking for a new job, whether you're in a job already and looking for freedom, or whether you're just interested in looking for more. And, me personally, I'm looking for more because, I own a couple properties and I definitely want to learn more about how to be more involved in it. And so without further ado, Spencer, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you. I'll let you take questions as you see fit, or we can wait until the very end and I can field them for you. So without further ado, Spencer, go
Well,
for
thank
it.
you so much, Albert. It's great to be here. I actually remember joining your group when you were very, very small. And this was actually before I was in real estate, right? It was
Back when you were in sales, right?
yeah, back in my past life. So the beauty of real estate is, is really up to the individual. There are some people that can start really out of college. Of course, there's different challenges for that, but there's many opportunities. At the same time, it's not surprising that you see people that are real estate at much later parts of their career. For me personally, it's been a kind of a transition for versus my past life. So at the end of the day, it is about the individual, the mentality. It is its own business, right? So you want to think of real estate as a business. I think a lot of people may get that kind of mixed up where they say, you know what, I could just go get my license and I'm just going to be like $1 million listing. I'll sell a few, a couple $1 million homes in a week. And then I have, many fat checks that allow me to go travel the rest of the time. I will unveil those curtains of what the reality actually looks like. And even of those super successful mega agents on $1 million listing, you can kind of see what actually happens behind the scenes. But the objective of this meeting is potentially opening up your eyes if this is the career or one of the auxiliary careers that might be of interest to you. As Albert had mentioned before, whether it's the realtor, it could be the lender, it could be people affiliated with them, it could be like title, there could be different services around it, there could be on the investment lens. Like there's a lot of things that are obviously tied to the value chain. But when it comes to real estate as a realtor, then that's what we're going to be talking about. What does my day look like? What do you need to do to be able to sign up to be a realtor? Like what are the key steps? And of course, feel free to ask any questions. I will be able to answer them through different phases, and we will have this as engaging as possible. It'll also be recorded so for those that are unable to make it, and we'll certainly share this afterwards. So let's talk a little bit about myself, of my intro, right? So I'm born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, and my past life, I didn't get into real estate on day one. My past life, I was in software sales. So I was in technology. A lot of people in Albert's list are always looking for technology roles, right? Whether it's on engineering, whether it's analytics, whether it's PM roles, could be sales roles, whatever it may be. I came from one of those roles, which is technology sales. I did that for the first decade of my career. And eventually I felt kind of trapped like most people working in a corporate job. Now, there's nothing wrong with kind of feeling trapped because on one end, you get stability to be able to do what you want. You don't have to worry about other things. But from my perspective of the growth that I want to have and the ambitions I wanted to have, I knew I needed to do my own thing, right? Because if you think from a business perspective, let's say you could potentially make a couple $100,000. From the business perspective, they'll look at that and say, okay, maybe I can divide that person in half. Let me order two of them. And that way I can just split it. And as a business, it may fundamentally make sense for them to do that, right? So that's something that I got tired of, and also realized I can jump ship from one company to another. The grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side. There's a very famous, very popular quote, it's the same dirt. And that really stuck to me, especially at the later parts. I was tired of making those lateral jumps, and I knew I needed to do something. And real estate became my calling. I initially got into real estate by investing in homes. I actually started off by flipping a few homes in the Bay Area. That really got me to understand a lot more about the industry. I did it on the side. So it gave me the exposure, the runway, but also the mentality to start learning a lot more. And then when it came time, I felt like, okay, this is the right move to make. Let's go for it, and let's keep building that. Fast forward, so I've been in the business for 3 years. My first year, my first 6 months, I actually did not help anybody with any deals. I did not close any transactions. But the latter 6 months, I ultimately helped 8 clients for about 10 million of transactions. And in my second year, I was fortunate during COVID, which was in 2020, I quadrupled the business. So I helped 30 something clients for 40 something million. And then last year, I, as a solo agent, helped 63 clients for 80 million plus in transaction volume. And this year so far, we've been fortunate to help already 27 clients, and we're going to continue to hopefully actually double what we have done last year. And for me to do that, that's a big part of also why I'm here, is I need personally more people, right? I can't individually do it myself. I need more agents, and I need more people to be able to take on this workload, but also if they're willing to put in the work for it. There's a lot of realtors out there, right? I'm sure you all know many realtors, but the fact is there's very few good ones. And that's like many industries, but especially in real estate, because on one end, it's fairly easy to get a license. It's very hard and very difficult to have the consistency and the discipline to be successful in this business. And that's the thing, right? So feel free to follow me along, Bay Area Tech Realtor. You can follow me on Instagram. You can also find me on YouTube. I produce lots of content there, whether it's helping people buy and sell homes or also just general market updates that most people will like. So let's talk about the realtor opportunity itself. Like, what is important to you, right? Like, what are the things that may motivate you to quit your stable career, regardless of what it is, and go off on a new journey? Is it potentially the flexibility, right? Maybe you are a working parent and you want to spend more time with your kids, so you want to structure that accordingly. Is it potentially the earning opportunity, right? If you think about how much people can make, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, whatever your salary is, do the math potentially of what you can do depending on how many transactions you do. Typically in the Bay Area, let's say the average home price is $1 million, just to make it easier, right? Generally, a realtor can earn, at least without talking about fees yet, about 2.5% of a home. So $1 million home is 25,000. So you can do the math very quickly for those that are willing to put in the work and stand out. You do 4 transactions a year, that's equivalent to $100,000. That's 4 transactions a year. You saw, fortunately, I've been able to help 63 clients. So you can see like the opportunity is so massive for those that are willing to be trusted, that can be trusted and willing to put in the work. Could be career growth, right? For me personally, I have the ability to now own my own team, own my own company. And my challenges today are very different than it was a year ago. And that has to do with just how I want to grow it. But at the same time, now I'm doing a lot more managerial tasks along with running a business. Or it could be the last thing, right? You could say, look, I didn't have a good experience myself when you bought a home or when you sold a home. Maybe it's an opportunity where you can help others, and you can do a better job from a customer service, from a knowledge. There's many value propositions that you can do to stand out. And those are all things very important to decide on if this is the industry or the career for you. So what is the lifestyle of a real estate agent? Is it like this? Quite frankly, I have some nice suits myself, but not as nice as theirs. And I certainly do not do the dollar amount that these guys do either. Nevertheless, many of these guys are also, quite frankly, in the top 0.1%. But they're also very smart. So on one end, because $1 million listing is such a national thing, it's a feedback loop. So make no mistake, yes, they got successful on one end because of that. They were already successful before, but this is a feedback loop to keep growing that even exponentially faster. And that's the thing that all these successful agents do. They use these feedback loops to keep getting exponentially better, right? There's more and more people watching $1 million listings now than before, right? So then now they have a much bigger following. You have all these aspects of social media where they can also follow along outside the shows. I mean, think about the shows, right? It's like 14 episodes, something like that, which is like 14 weeks. And so they have to keep it going. And so they're doing a lot of really cool things when it comes to building that. But nevertheless, they're obviously only going to show you the most dramatic parts. I know they reenact a lot of these deals, so they're not actually live deals if you look at it online of those houses that they sell. But it's still very entertaining. I personally still learn a lot from them because there's a lot of sales disciplines that you can learn from them. So you can still learn a lot of aspects, but don't just think, oh, it's that easy to do. Like most of them have been in the business for a decade plus, 20 plus years. They may look very young and polished, but they've been in the business for a long time and they've been grinding for a long time. People fail to remember that they're not overnight successes. They are a decade, 2 decades in the making. So that gives you an idea. So what is the real life, right? Like what does my life look like? What do my agents look like? It's kind of mundane, actually. It's the same all the time, but it makes sense if you think about it. I mean, think about from a high level, how do you get from someone that wants to potentially buy a home or buy or sell a home? That's pretty far along in this is a specific life event in their journey. So for your goal is to be aware that if they are thinking about buying, selling, or investing in a home, they can think of you. So how do you do that? There are many ways to do that, right? There could be meeting people in person. It could be online through these channels. It could be through social media. It could be through paid sources, right? There's all these different avenues to continue to build up that funnel. But the objective of a top producer is that, and especially for these individuals, is a lot of people know them. So when they, just like Tammy's case, of course you want Frederick to help you sell a home in LA, right? That's this funnel that he brought in. And a big part of that is $1 million listing. That's one pillar. So the objective, if you think about it, is having as many conversations, as many relationships, and have as many people as possible that will trust you either for themselves or for their friends to potentially buy or sell a home. So what does that day look like if you just structure it on a day basis? In the mornings, I go with my team. There is an aspect of role play. So in the mornings, we go over scenarios, go over conversations, like what are common things that people can talk about? How do you combat them? How do you frame the conversation? Next is just follow up and having conversations. It could be existing clients that are actively looking. It could be people that you haven't met before. It could be people that maybe potential aspects where you can add value. It could be homeowners, updating them about what's going on with the market. It's just having about conversations, right? As many conversations as you can. And in conversations, what happens is that it ultimately leads to appointments, and it ultimately leads to opportunities where they want to learn more about the process. They want to go see homes. They want to potentially make offers on homes, right? These are all the aspects when it comes to building up that funnel. And then at the end of the day, there's all these other things that supplement the business and supplement the work itself. It could be actually working on social media marketing. It could be working on flyers. It could be working on reviewing reports. It could be understanding and prepping for offers. Like there is these different components that are part of it. But as you can see, a big part of my day and a big part of most successful agents' day is having conversations, being on these webinars, being on these meetings, to be in front of people. And that is the objective of how someone can be successful in this line of work. But at the end of the day, the thing is, it's, as you can see, it's a daily thing, right? It could be very boring at times, right? You're not calling necessarily the same people every day, but you're doing the same structured tasks. So what I really want to emphasize for a lot of people that want to be successful, whether it's on this or anything else, is embrace the grind, right? There are obviously many days that you don't want to do these things, but it's like a farmer would, right? If you plant enough seeds, they will eventually sprout. The more you plant now, these are things that'll be sprouting months down the road. But if you don't plant any now, don't be surprised. Nothing is ready a few months later. And it could be a feedback loop on both ends. A feedback loop where you can get better and better and have more and more clients like myself, or a feedback loop, it could go very, very spiraling down and you become very negative. And so those are the things just to be mindful of when it comes to what actually happens in the real world. So I can answer a few questions. So feel free to ask any questions that you guys may have. If you want to raise your hand, then we can unmute you too, and we can allow you to talk. So Tammy, very engaging. I appreciate it a lot. How predominantly do you find your client pool? That's the thing, right? At the end of the day, it depends on what is your network? Where do you want your network to be? So for my goal personally, I want to continue to be more and more upscale. So I want to keep rising more and more price points. Well, where would that be? Would that be in hanging out with the same friends that you're at now? Maybe, maybe not. It could be going to where generally people that have more money or wealthier are, right? So understanding their needs and wants, and not necessarily the lifestyle, but just the things that they appreciate to be able to add value there. So for my goal personally is to continue to be more upscale. I like that sophistication and that's kind of network. At the same time, for me, it's also expanding my team. So my team has to start off somewhere and they have to build their circle. So there's lots of ways to build a client pool, but those are one of the many. What a percentage of time on open houses or showings? So as you keep growing, so the way to think about it is you want to leverage your time. So for me, I have showing partners that work for me too. They're full-time employees that do showings for my clients. But when you first start, you're going to be the one that does the showings. Now, generally, you also want to keep a structured process, right? You do want to keep a structured process like this because let's say you do showings in the morning. It really disrupts your day because now you may forget to do those lead follow-ups and things like that. So you always want to schedule it as much as possible, saying, look, my only availability is in the afternoon. That's why right now our webinar with Albert is only in the basically late afternoon, early evening. I'm not going to do it in the morning. I need to protect that time for all that work, right? And so it's the same idea. If someone wants to go see a home, we can go see in the afternoon. There's very few times where it makes much of a difference if you see in the morning or in the afternoon from a logistics perspective, right? So that kind of gives you an idea there. And then this is generally Monday through Friday. For weekends, and that's different. Weekends, there may be more showings. It may be all day. The weekend schedule is different because that's where a lot of the activity is to discover homes. So hopefully that answers your question there. Okay, so the next question that people may have is, how do you become a real estate agent? What is the process? There are a lot of things in place to be able to get a license, but they all follow a sequence. And so the way that you want to think about it is, if you want to be a realtor, it's nowhere the same as getting a university degree or even a high school degree, but it's a few steps that you need to take. First and foremost, you take an online or an in-person, I actually wrote this wrong, an online or in-person course is actually not an exam, it's a course. So you first do that, and it's up to you. Some people learn better from in-person classes. They're more like a boot camp style then, so you can do that. Or you can take any of really the online state courses. You want to look at it and see which state that it's okay with. Like California, there's tons of them. I think I personally found like a Groupon for one. I don't know if it was actually cheaper, but it didn't matter. They're all the same high level, right? It's the same material, same content. There are some that'll give you extra prep courses, some extra, practice exams. You can also look a lot of that up for free, or you can pay for that separately as a course. But the key is you're gonna have to pass these online courses. It's generally also a time gate. So it's not like, okay, you can commit a whole weekend, you finish it all. It's typically a time gate until you pass the first of the 3 courses. There's usually 3 courses. So you pass it, and then I think you have to wait like a week, at least for the online versions. You pass it again, you gotta wait a week, right? And there's some time gate element. I don't know if it's when you pass it or if it's when you have to first start it, but either way, you can't just like cram it in one day, even though technically from a number of hours perspective, you could, but it's just something to be mindful of. So once you pass the online course or the in-person course, then you would submit that information to the board. So there's a board that will be able to process that, ensure that the things are properly done. You would also send any sort of details about yourself to be able to have the opportunity to register for an in-person class, or sorry, in-person exam. The in-person exams are in general a few hubs. I know Oakland has one if you're in the Bay Area. I know Sacramento has a very big hub. I personally drove to Sacramento because they have more spots and I can take my exam faster. But that was many, many years ago. It just depends on the situation. So you do need to do that. In order to pass it, it's typically, I think, 100 plus question exam. And it's all in person. It's all like digital. So it's all via a computer. And you do need to get a passing score of 70%. You will not know what the percentage is. So you will just get at the end of that exam, almost in real time, when you check out. It's just like any sort of kind of if you remember taking your SATs and things like that, it's very similar to that. But you'll know right away, pass or fail. So either be a very pleasant long drive back, or you're gonna have to really take the exam, which I think there's maybe some waiting period. You may have to wait like 3 weeks or something to pass it, to go over it again, right? So that's the in-person exam. Now, you're technically have a license. It still takes a few weeks to get your license. And the way that the real estate model works is that most of the time, most agents are independent. And so most agents do their own thing, but they hang their license at a brokerage. So it's very different than most of you guys that have a standard job. Let's say you work at Google, right? Google employs you, they give you money. For most companies, it's the reverse. I give them money to have me be able to do what I can do, but also to, but I give them money as part of what they call as a split. So just because technically you may make $25,000 on $1 million home, that's not how it works. There's a lot broken down to get then distributed to the brokerage. And there's many brokerages out there, right? And you want to find the one that's most suitable for yourself. So if you're watching this or anyone's interested, whether it's 3 to 4 months down the road when you get a license, yes, join me and my group at EXP. EXP is one brokerage. There is many out there. There's Keller Williams, Compass, Intero. There's many of them, and they all have their own different value propositions. So what's critical for you is, one, which one is going to be hopefully the best aligned for you, which one will give you the most training, especially in the beginning when you have no idea what you're doing, and then what who you're connected with, and certainly the finances are very important, right? Their splits are all very different for all these companies, and so you have to find out where you want to be and what you want to do, what are the costs associated with it, and then be aligned with one of the brokerages. So that's how that works. You will also be paying what they call as association fees. So there are local boards. There's a local board in the Bay Area, many boards actually in the Bay Area, and there's also the state board. And so you do need to be associated with one of them, which will give you access to what they call as the backend. It's called the multiple listing service, the MLS. Those are all controlled by the boards. And once you're done with that, now you actually just started. The fact is, all those things that you learned, it doesn't actually help too much of the real world of actually being a successful realtor. It just gave you the starting point to be able to begin that journey. So make no mistake, you haven't even started yet. The journey just starts once all of those things are done, right? So just be mindful of that. Any other questions or thoughts? We're pretty much getting close to the end of the presentation. As you can see, it's not an overly complicated thing. I gave you an idea about the opportunity that is in place. What are the steps needed for this? A recording will be sent out either through the list, but also just on YouTube and these platforms. But any other questions right now of anything that I may have covered or haven't covered? Otherwise, there are different ways just to follow me. So the way that it works is feel free to follow me for helpful content. You can watch me on YouTube. I post basically about twice a week on there. You can follow me on Instagram at Bay Area Tech Realtor. You can't miss me. And if you do want to find and eventually you're at the position to join, feel free to reach out either on any of these channels. You'll certainly get a reply, and you can have me join my group at EXP, as I have, I think, 20 plus people that are affiliated with me right now. So let's talk about this. So good, lots of questions. Let them keep flowing. And feel free, like I said, if you want to raise your hand, you can also be allowed to talk for those that want to talk. So where do we see sample exams? I mean, quite frankly, just Google it. There's so many free sources out there. If you want practice ones, then just find out you can buy it a la carte. There are many options to take these practice exams. And I would highly encourage you to take as many of those practice exams as you can prior to the test. Because if you think about it, it's a test-based, it's a multiple choice setup, right? And so you want to understand how they'll ask you that question. And There's only so many ways to ask the same question. So I just did a ton of practice tests. I actually stopped reading about it per se. It was all about, okay, I know the content, but I have to understand how they ask the question so that I know potentially what the answer might be. And then if I get it wrong, then you can learn like what is the answer and why. So the practice test is very critical. I would highly suggest you do it, especially within your last week. How beneficial is it to have a real estate license before you jump into real estate investing? It's not that beneficial because the real estate license is all about the opportunity to practice and do real estate. You do not need a license to buy and sell homes. You do need to work with a realtor to do it. And of course, that's going to be a tremendous value, especially someone that does a lot. But you yourself don't have to do anything. I got into real estate not as a realtor, but as real estate investing long before I was a realtor. The realtor side does not help you at all for that. Like it doesn't help you learn anything different because you're learning about the law. I mean, there's some things, but you're learning about like the laws, but you're learning about like how to do the business of it, not necessarily of buying and selling and investing. Those are very different things. Those are more numbers driven, which you're not going to learn necessarily from being a realtor. Trust me, lots of realtors are not good investors because they never learned that. So it's a complete different thing. How much does a realtor typically make per sale after splitting profits and fees with brokerage? Great question. So it depends. It really depends on the brokerage, right? There's many brokerages that have, let's say, a 70-30 split, which means you keep 70, they take 30%. But do the math, right? So if it's a typical, in the ranges, let's say the range between 2 to 3% per side. So if you're on the listing side, you may get 2% to 3%. It could be more, it could be less. Buy side is typically, let's say that amount. That's 2 to 3% of the value of the home itself. So you take that, you split the fees. There may be other things associated with it, right? There's marketing expenses. There's different ads that you may run. They can be very expensive, but that gives you a general breakdown of how much somebody can potentially earn. That's how it's calculated. It's not overly complicated. So you have the link there, resource. Oh yeah, this is very different then. Yeah, this is very different for real estate development. That's nothing to do with realtor, by the way. So that doesn't help, but it's something different. So you have a Groupon depending on courses, and maybe the same Groupon. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I just bought a Groupon. Like I said, I don't even know if it was cheaper. Now that you simply Google it and see the cost of it, you may be like, all right, it's kind of the same anyways. You may have saved tens of dollars, but it doesn't really matter which course you want to take online.
So how do you do real estate as a side hustle?
That's a great question. So real estate, everybody has to decide on their end. Do they take the leap of faith to do this full time, or do they just do it on the side, right? Because if you think about it, the dollar amount, make no mistake, it's not easy, but you could make money on the side by being a licensed realtor. So what are the paths? And let's talk about from the least amount of work to the most amount of work, right? The least amount of work is that if you're a realtor and you have a license, you can get paid a referral amount. So for example, if you're like, hey, look, I'm very happy with my job. I also don't want to take the risk of leaving my job. I'll get the license, but if anybody knows, I can still get paid back to how much I would earn, a percentage of that. And I would be gladly to pay any of you guys, if you're a licensed realtor, 25% as an example. So you can get a referral fee. At that stage, you have no liability because you're not really involved with the whole contract. You just send a referral and you get paid, hopefully, if they actually end up buying or selling. That's like the least amount of work, right? Obviously, the most amount of work is doing the whole thing. And so you would then help them like I would help a client buy and sell a home. But at that stage, you need to do everything. You need to be very familiar with contracts. Obviously, you need to make the right bid. You need to understand disclosures. There are many components that are needed to be able to help them. And at the same time, you have a fiduciary responsibility for them. So you are liable with them too, in case you screw up. So there are different aspects and risks to that. On the same side, on the flip side, you can make that kind of money, right? And so it's not bad if someone can actually do a few a year, even as a side hustle. Let's say you can do 3 a year. If it's $1 million home in the Bay Area, on average, that's $75,000. Most people's incomes, that's a very big chunk of somebody's income. Now it is hard. I'm not saying it's not hard, but that is a way, right? So people can be successful that way. Juan, do people generally join a team within a brokerage like yours to get started? So it's up to the individual, right? It's completely up to the individual. I would say though, for most people, you should definitely join a team, because just because you passed the license still don't know much. You don't know anything yet. You don't even know contracts yet. You just begun the journey. And so it's a lot better to have a brokerage, because a brokerage will have ongoing training. So like, for example, EXP has lots of ongoing training all day, every day, because it's an online platform. So there's always things you can learn and improve on. But on the day-to-day things and the things of just practices, it's probably best for you to join a team. But make no mistake, you better be good and you better work hard. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense mutually, right? Because it's going to be a lot of time for like someone like myself to train. So it has to be a mutual fit. Otherwise, people can just join on their own, especially those that are doing part-time. There's lots of things that they can learn separately there. Those are all viable options. But if you're planning to be trying to be successful and really want to have a chance to do well, then it's most likely better to join a team, learn that way. But there'll be a different split, as you can imagine, joining a team, because there's a lot of time and money invested from the leader side. What did you do differently to generate sales after your source? No, it's just time, right? The reality is time. You put in the work, you plant your seeds, keep planting as many seeds as possible. The seeds don't grow at the same time, right? There's a difference though. Some people can be 6 months in, no sales. Next 6 months, still no sales. Other people, 6 months in, no sales, like myself, multiple sales come up. But it's because of all the efforts, and all the efforts of the seeds is having conversations, having people you trust or that trust you, and actively looking and making offers. And then it's a matter of time, they'll ultimately close and then hopefully get referrals and other business out of it. The skills keep getting improved, right? So the conversations I have, the strategy, the knowledge keeps getting better and better, but it's the same thing that you see that I shared already of what it takes to be successful. SAC disclosures are basically, disclosures are all the paperwork. They're called disclosing documents, basically. Disclosures, documents to disclose and share about a home itself. So prior to any transactions, everybody has to read all the paperwork about the home to ensure they're okay with what they're getting themselves into. Thank you for that, Tammy. It's a link there. Jackie, how long did it take from the start of your real estate course, to your first sale? Well, if you think about it, do some math backwards. Right now, it's going to take you 3 to 4 months to get your license. So work backwards, right? Let's say it's 4 months to get a license. You take your course from day one. So day one is a course. Pass your course. You can re-listen to the whole thing. It'll take about 3 to 4 months right now. And then, as I mentioned, my first 6 months, I didn't do a deal. So from course to sale would be nine months, right? 9 months. You're welcome, Juan. Anyone else have any other questions? Otherwise, if there's no other questions, we will actually wrap up.
I'm actually curious to hear. So what are the different types of individuals from different areas and different careers that you've met that moved into real estate? What kind of jobs did they have prior, and what kind of roles besides selling and helping people buy real estate are there that go beyond the value chain?
I mean, there's so many, right? Professions, like it can range. I mean, you have people that could be teachers, right? That could be in it. You have people that are bartenders. They're very good because they're very good at having conversations and building trust, right? It could be a customer service job. Not many, but there's engineering people that got into the business too. So it really depends. Everybody can get tired or they don't like what they're doing, and real estate is one of the many careers and options that has a very low starting cost, right? And think about this: if you want to open up a business or a restaurant, how much money do you have to spend to open up a restaurant? That's a lot of upfront capital before you make a dime. With real estate, it is time, it is a lot of work, but the amount of capital you invest to potentially make is very little relative to it, right? And there's many but there's many things that support it. So for example, my wife used to be an accountant. So she did that for the first decade. But as our business kept doing well, it made sense for the value chain of a buyer is to have her be a lender. So now she does lending for us if they wanted to go through that path and have it more integrated, right? So there's other side things, but I would say it's mainly real estate, lending. Those are the most common ones. The rest, those are the most common ones.
Got it. Cool. Cool. Any other questions from anybody else here? It sounds like, you could be in just about any job, and there's something tangential available to you in real estate, which is great too. Well, if there's no other questions, you have, oh, here's one more person, Tammy. I'd love to chat with you more about collaborating even part-time. I think it would be second nature, as I know the Bay Area very well. Cool. Yeah, wonderful. So yeah, if there are no other questions, we're going to go ahead and conclude it here. For those of you who want the recording, it's available in our Facebook group right now. So go and check it out after this video is over. In the meantime, if you're not in our Facebook group, it'll also be on YouTube. And so I'll send something around here in a couple of days. Until next time, thanks all for joining. Feel free to connect with Spencer, and good luck getting all your real estate licenses. It's going to be a great year for the rest of you who do so and take advantage of the opportunity. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Spencer.
Thanks, Albert. Have a good one.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.